All right, and welcome everybody to what is probably going to be the last official hangout for the Life Coaching Training series of Hangouts. It doesn't mean that Coaching Hangout is necessarily going to end, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to discuss topics that are important to coaching. It means that I'm going to be looking at some ways to reformulate these Hangouts so that they better serve who I am, what I do, and how I'm assisting other people. And right now, coaching is not actually my primary area of responsibility that I'm doing, so I'm looking at a reason to possibly shift and adjust how this is being created. But today we do have a topic. Today's topic is healthy life as a coach. We think that's a pretty good one to kind of wrap up this series of Hangouts about. And I will be sending out announcements to everybody as I come up with what the new rendition will look like. I'm playing around with the idea that it'll be something like a 2 o'clock on probably a Tuesday, but I need to finalize that and just check my schedule and see if that's viable. And I was just going to ask the folks that are in the Hangout how viable that is for them. And also, if you're watching, either hop in the Hangout, let us know, or leave a comment below and let us know if Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern time for you, Dr. Allen. And I have no idea what frickin' time. Probably 9 a.m. for you, Wendy? 8 a.m.?
So 2, it's 12 for you at the moment, isn't it? That would be 7 a.m.
Okay, so that's at least more somewhat human.
Yeah, much more human.
And so, but the only concern I've got is that also makes it like 11 p.m. for my European folks. So we'll play it by ear. We'll see what happens with it, but I do want to shift it a little bit. This noon time on Wednesdays especially just has been a challenge for me for the last 2 months, and I've been getting too many messages that I need to look at a place or a way to shift that. So that's what I'm doing. So just so everybody knows, that's what's happening. But today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to have a healthy life as a coach. What does that look like? What does that mean? Is it even possible? And then I'm going to leave it open to any thoughts, feedback, comments people have about new possible renditions, what this might look like in its new form as well. But having said all that, I'm just going to go in and let folks introduce themselves. I'm going to go left to right today. So Dr. Allen, I have excellent timing. So Dr. Allen, you're going to be up first. Why don't you go ahead and say hello to everybody and introduce yourself.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Allen, and this is a really good topic for me. I've practiced as a physician for 30 years, so I hope after all that time I know a little something about health. I know a little something about coaching, and so ultimately I think this is going to be an exciting event to be our final official Wednesday afternoon coaching hangout number 1. I'm also best known for creating applications that allow you to bring live hangouts just like this one to the desktop, iPhone, iPad, and now the Samsung Android parts. So that's about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Allen. Would Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern be feasible for you?
Yeah, I would say the answer to that is yes, as long as I'm scheduled. What I do with these, I schedule the whole year on Wednesday for this one in advance. It's the only way that I can guarantee it. So if we know it's going to be Tuesday at 5, I'm going to block out 5 to 6, for infinity until you tell me something else.
Excellent. And so if you want to do that, go ahead. For whatever works. That's what I'm leaning towards right now. We may not do one next week, but we will probably start middle of September once I'm kind of got myself a little bit of settled into some new. I have a lot of life transitions happening at the moment, which are a little overwhelming. But once I've settled back down a little bit, I will definitely announce to you guys what the official plan is on all that, just so people know. So, but right now, Tuesdays at 5 or Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern is what I'm looking at, so just so everybody knows. Go ahead, Wendy. How about you say hello and tell everybody a little bit about you?
Yes, I like that little intro, Dr. Allen, about what you're best known for, so I'll pick up on the coattails of that. I'm best known for all things emerging leadership education, and emerging leaders within that basket falls small to medium businesses, so businesses that would like to grow and be successful. It also includes emerging entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, and it includes young professionals. And very happy to be here on the last one. I don't think I was on the first one, but I was definitely on the second one. So it's a nice full circle thing. I'm closing the loop.
Yeah, you definitely have been around for a very, 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 very large number of these hangouts. So I appreciate the support all the way. So now what we're talking about, just healthy life as a coach, I want to just kind of give you my perspective on what some of that looks like, and then we can bring it up, get other perspectives from other folks. Because to me, health, I mean, you do coaching because you might like it or you think it brings in income, and that's one aspect of a healthy life, is knowing that you have enough income coming in that you feel secure, and that you can pay your bills and that you're not stressed about money. That to me is that's kind of the financial health. There's next levels of financial health where you have enough invested and blah, 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 and there's levels of health. But the basic levels, you've got enough to cover your expenses and you're not stressing about what am I going to eat tonight, or how am I going to be able to put gas in the car. To me, that's that first level of health when it comes to finance. There's also physical health, meaning that you're taking care of yourself, meaning that you're not working 23 hours a day, barely getting any sleep, not eating well, not getting enough, not getting exercise, any of those other things. Like, I know Dr. Allen on other Hangouts has talked about that. He just works all the time, but that's not actually true. Dr. Allen's an unbelievably fit man, and if you've ever seen pictures of Dr. Allen, you'll understand. So he has that physical health, even though he does work a lot. It's not that he's discarding that other side of it, so that's important. There's also, to me, the personal health, which isn't just physical health, but it's that personal, emotional, relationship health. Do you have people in your life that are supporting you? Do you have a social life at all? Are you interacting with other human beings who are positive influences on you and making you feel positive as you're doing it? All of that, I think, is also important. The emotional health, are you actually taking care of yourself just emotionally, dealing with problems as they arise, addressing what's going on with you, helping yourself grow and become better? And then to me, there's business health, making sure that your business actually is growing and increasing and is something that you're enjoying doing. Is there any aspect of health that you guys, so we've got financial, physical, personal, business, emotional. Is there any kind of health branch that I'm missing, Dr. Allen?
No, I think if we put the entertainment aspect under personal, I think you got it all.
Yep. And mental to me is that mental emotional as well, because I think mental health is important. You've got to really make sure you've got the right mindset and believe in yourself, and that's a big piece. That to me, that's also part of the emotional piece. So yeah, and entertainment to me is personal, that you're actually having fun in your life, that life actually is enjoyable and fun and not tedious and painful and unpleasant, because that's not really life then, that's misery. So thanks for that. So that's my thought on it. And so then the big question is, can you do that with coaching? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because you can, the challenge, and this is just my own perspective that I see a lot of people go through, the challenge with having a healthy life as a coach is that too often, because coaching is time for money agreement, that in order to get to whatever your monthly expenses are, you need to be able to bring in X amount of money. So I'm going to do really simple math because I suck at math. Let's say there's $5,000 you need a month in order to be able to pay your expenses, to just stay afloat, be able to cover everything, be fine, comfortable, $5,000. Now, if you're and let's say you make $50 an hour. So 5,000 divided by 50 is 100 hours. Is that right, math folks? That means you need to do 100 hours of coaching in a month in order to cover your expenses at $50 an hour. That doesn't sound very fun. That's 2 full-time weeks plus. I mean, actually, that's not. Is that miserable? No, that's 2 full-time weeks plus another week. So that's 2.5 full-time weeks in order to cover all of your expenses within a month at $50 a pop. That's great. Now, we know there's also time that goes into setup and getting prep and recruiting folks and marketing and all that other stuff that's not included in the actual delivery hours of your coaching. So you're looking at basically 4 full-hour weeks, like 4 40-hour weeks, in order to keep a business afloat, to make $5,000 a month at $50 a person. The options become, what do you do? Either get more clients, and now let's say your expenses are $6,000 because something came up. You need a new car. You either need to add in another, 5 people in order to be able to cover that extra $1,000, or you need to start raising your prices. And so that's really the point that I want to make when it comes to having a healthy life is, A, if you've never done the numbers that I just talked about, you're not going to have a healthy life as a coach. You've got to know, one, what is your monthly nut? How much do you actually need to bring in income every month to pay all your bills, put some money away, and still have a life? Got to know what that number is. If you don't know what that number is, that's the first thing you got to do. Second, you got to look at what you charge per hour and figure out how many hours is that? How many clients or client hours do you have to do to make that work? If my monthly nut is $10,000 and I'm only charging $50 an hour, now I'm working 200 hours a month, and that's now talking lots and lots of, like, that's basically you're talking, what, 50-hour weeks? That's a lot of time, people. You got to know what those, you got to be able to do those numbers first to make sure coaching even is valuable. If you can't make more than $50 an hour as a coach, and you need to make $10,000 an hour, you need to not be in coaching, people. Or $10,000 a month, you need to not be in coaching at $50 an hour. You're not going to make it. Or you're not going to be able to at least have a healthy life. So you got to know what your monthly expenses are. You got to know how many hours that equates to based on your hourly rate, because that's how much delivery time you got to put in. If you do those equations, you're at least starting to get to the point of having a healthy life. What do you guys think so far?
Yep, that all makes sense.
All right, Dr. Allen?
Yeah. Oh, well, I want to add one more piece to that, and I want people to recognize a couple of things. Number one is that what Sean's talking about here is basics, because one day you might actually want to retire, or you might want to have money working for you. That's not including putting that away. So covering your expenses is the minimal amount you have to figure. That doesn't, that doesn't account for anything else that you want. Things you want to buy, part of the enjoyment package. How much are you willing to put in for your health? In other words, are you willing to join? Are you going to join a gym membership? Are you going to buy better quality food? Do you like to go out on the weekends? Are you addicted to Starbucks coffee? All those things add up. So, I don't want people to think, how do I get by bare minimum as a coach? You want to, how am I going to have the lifestyle I want? Define that lifestyle and figure out if coaching at that point is something that you can make that lifestyle happen in.
Well, and I love that you said that, because that's a perfect tie into what my next point was going to be, Dr. Allen, is that you know your basics. And let's say you got to work 100 hours over the month because you got to be able to make your basic expenses. Now let's say you like to go to the movies, and we know that's $20 a pop to go to a movie now. So basically, 2 movies a month is a whole nother hour of coaching that you got to find in. Or if you like to go out to dinner and it's a $50 dinner for you and your partner to go out to dinner, that's another hour of coaching you need to make in order to be able to have a basic, enjoyable evening out. Or even probably 2 hours of coaching to have a basic, enjoyable, because $50 isn't really going to get you a very fun dinner out. You want $100 to cover that. I've got a date next Friday, and it's going to drop me probably about $250, $300 just for one date night. It's worth it because it's something we've talked about. It's a great little surprise. It's a special evening, that kind of stuff. So that makes total sense. But that, if I'm making $50 an hour, that means that one date night is 3 more hours of coaching. So if I want to have that balance in my life, I got to be able to you got to think about it from hours of coaching or increases in hourly rate of coaching. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because you got to be once you're at basics, what's that next thing? I want to put $1,000 a month aside. All right, now we're talking another 10 hours of coaching, or 5 hours of coaching. However all that breaks down into stuff, you've got to be able to really understand the numbers in order to figure out to get to the life that you want to have. So thanks for bringing that up, Dr. Allen.
Yeah, I want to just add one more piece to that is, now, depending on what your circumstance is, you might come from a family that has left you a trust. So it may not be, coaching may not be the thing that you're using to support yourself. You might have a mate, and that person might be the breadwinner, and you just love coaching so much that your lifestyle isn't totally dependent on your coaching. So there's a lot of factors to pull into the game here to make a decision about your charges and everything else. One other thing is, if you have $10,000 of expenses, we'll just use that as an example, and you're a $50 an hour coach, that tells me that you probably have gone after the wrong client. If you're paying $10,000 in expenses, you want clients that are $10,000 a month or more expense clients, because how are they going to pay you what you're worth? So you could always being cheaper as a coach might get you more customers, but as it's been said by Sean and other people, that the people that get into your funnel at the lowest price usually bring the most problems. It's easy to get one person for $50 than one for $1,000, but if you get 10 for $1,000, you're going to need 100 to be able to make up for how you going to find 100 that are paying you. You know what I mean? So.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why I love the idea of looking at your pricing and if there's a way to raise your prices. I was saying that you needed 100 hours of coaching at $50 a pop. But if you raise your costs, if you are actually a $100 an hour coach, now you need 50 hours of coaching a month, and that's a whole lot more enjoyable month for you, and you've got the exact same amount of money coming in. You got to know what your value is, and it doesn't mean that you hang out a shingle and say, I'm a $5,000 an hour coach. That's just not reality for 99% of coaches on the planet. But you got to look at, if you're just taking anyone at any price for any reason to try to make money, you're actually hurting your long-term bottom line. Get clear on what your value is, how much value you bring somebody, and only take clients who match that value price. If you take clients below that, what you're doing is A, undermining yourself, B, setting up a general concept that you're really not worth what you're asking, and you're going to fill yourself up with, as Dr. Allen talked about, lots of problem children at really low prices, which makes that 100 hours of coaching really 200 hours of coaching, because you're spending twice as much dealing with the problems they're creating for you. You're muted, Dr. Allen.
And you're also eliminating one other part of your time, and that is getting coaching clients also requires time. So you don't always have 100 hours to coach every month, or whatever, 200, which is the real worst case scenario, because a lot of your time is spent developing clients to be coached. And as a consequence, that could take away 20 hours a week of your time just to find those people, and no one pays you for the time that you're searching for clients.
Yeah, exactly. And so so you have to take all of this stuff into account. And I'm starting here instead of looking at all the other areas of a balanced life, because if you don't have this basic concept of doing the numbers down, everything else we're about to talk about is just not worth your time. Because you've got to know what your numbers are, you got to know how many hours you're talking about, because you got to be able to figure out where those are going to come from. Once you've done that and you have an idea of what you're looking at, you then have to look at the rest of your life. If you want to be healthy and fit, I don't know how often you work out, Dr. Allen. Is it pretty much every day, every other day?
I never do less than 6 days a week. I try to go for 7, and I never go less than 6.
And they're usually, what, about an hour per workout?
Because I do a very scientific approach to working out, which is getting a lot out of my workout in the shortest amount of time, I would say it's a half hour to 40 minutes.
Okay. All right, so I'm in it. Perfect. So your average person, in order to get the results Dr. Allen has, probably needs an hour, just because they're not as scientifically astute as Dr. Allen. So let's say you want to work out. Being fit, being healthy, is extremely important to you, because it should be. And so, like for me, I'm not working out every day, but I'm doing 30 minutes of walking every day. I'm not at the gym, I'm not hitting the weights, but I make a point of I'm going to go and I'm going to walk for 30 minutes every day. It doesn't matter if it's the first thing in the morning, if I'm sneaking it in over my lunch hour, if I'm doing it at night. Whenever I can fit it in, I make sure I still walk to do something right now. Would I like to do more? Sure. Am I balanced in that area of my life? Not as much as I'd like to be. But it's the fact that I've got 10 straight days of having gone for a walk, to me, is a great victory. So that's part of that concept. It's an area I knew I was out of balance. I made a commitment to it. So that's 30 minutes for me, hour maybe if you're going to be really diligent. But that's 7 hours out of your week. And if you start thinking about this, if you've got 24 hours in a day and you're supposed to sleep for 8 hours a day, so now that brings you down to 16 hours a day. You've got a trip to the gym every day, so now you're 15 hours a day. Put in 3 hours for food prep, eating. Now we're down to 12 hours a day. Somewhere in there you need to get ready, so let's put another 2 hours for just general existence. So now we're down to 10 hours a day, and that's best case scenario if you're looking at $5,000 and you need at $50 an hour, you now have zero time for anything else in order to make this happen. So you got to think about how that number's down. How is your day being spent? And I'm not even talking about people that watch 2 to 3 to 4 hours of TV a day, time I take for reading or meditation or any of that other stuff. If you've got other things that help bring a balanced life, date night, blah, 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 all those other things, if you're not doing that, you've got to get these numbers down. You've got to understand over your week, where's your time going, and map it out. When I was working in university, it's the very first thing in my first day of class, I gave everybody a calendar, a week calendar from midnight to midnight, and I had the students go through and said, put out, like, fill this up, and here's what I want. 8 hours for sleep. I know none of you are getting that, but we're going to put it in anyway. We're going to put in, 3 hours a day of homework, because that's what you should be doing. When are you in class? When do you have jobs? Fill it all up, and eventually they all realized I don't have time for everything. Or they had 1 hour to hang out with friends at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. Like, that's not healthy. You got to figure out where is your time going right now so you can find the spaces of time you either want to use better or fill up with things that are going to bring you balance. Could I work out from 9 to 10 every night? Absolutely. That time is a time I'm usually not working. I'm not doing anything productive. I could go to a gym and work out during that time and get my healthy part of my balance done better by making that my gym time. Absolutely feasible. I could, I haven't, but that's because I haven't made it a priority. But it's an example of acknowledging and knowing where I have time to bring balance into a part of my life. And this is the key. You've got to be able to figure out where you are right now in your life, look at where you may not have balance in your life, and then figure out where you want to be, what that's going to take, and finding time to fit that in. Thoughts from you guys?
Yes, I would just like to add to that. I worked last year with a very successful entrepreneur, and we looked at a business model for coaching. And apparently the research is 95% of coaches go out of business because it's not economically viable for them. So we looked at business models that work, that will keep coaches in business, and a business model that was created, which somebody has trialed over the last couple of years because she was doing it beforehand. It was quite interesting. So basically they were saying 30-minute sessions work, 45-minute to hour sessions don't work because you can't fit enough clients in, number one, and you can get the same value for a client in 30 minutes as you can 45 or an hour. And then subcontracting it out, so creating a system and hiring people and then subcontracting. That's really one of the only ways that it's really viable as a decent money-making venture and business. I would also add to that, it's good to have other stuff apart from coaching as well.
It's pretty rare that somebody is making an entire living just at coaching. There's got to be something else they're delivering. Like, Dr. Allen, I know you have coached multiple people, but you're an app developer, and that's a higher price. Like, you may still coach a few people here and there, and I know you have a few clients, but that's not really your primary income source. Your primary income source is app development. Just like for me, my primary source is consulting small businesses in automation and simplification. That's really what I do, which some people might call coaching, but it's really not. There's a lot of tech stuff that I do behind the scenes for them to make things a reality. But I still do occasional one-to-one coaching with folks too, but that is absolutely not my primary income source. And my hourly rate is not $50 either. So it's viable, and I've simplified my life so my expenses are low. So I've done everything to make it a viable thing, but it's still not. And it's not, you're right, Wendy, that to go in thinking this is it, that's all you're going to be doing, is not very feasible. An hour-long, even 45-minute-long coaching sessions, you're right, that takes a lot out of it too. I love that the research, 30 minutes is just as viable as 45. Great. That means that your $50 a person cost, so instead of it being $50 an hour, it's $50 a session, and now actually what you're making is $100 an hour with that, folks, even though they're still getting a valuable session with you. So I think that's a great little tidbit for people to hear.
Definitely.
Yeah, very good. And
sorry, go on.
No, again, what were you going to say, Wendy?
I was just going to say, I've been sitting down again looking at my business model, and because I do a bit of subcontracting to someone else at coaching at the moment, and I just looked at it and I thought I cannot afford to subcontract to myself. It's not an economic business model for me to be subcontracting my services to somebody else and getting less money. I need to be the one that is subcontracting my services and getting other coaches working for me.
Yeah. I mean, it is, because I mean, admittedly, getting clients is the hardest part of coaching. So there is that value in it, and learning to coach, sometimes being a subcontractor of somebody else is the absolute best way to start, because you learn to coach, you kind of cut your teeth, you get a little experience. But in the big picture of things, the money is made by being the person who has the clients and finding other people. And I'm just going to throw together numbers. Let's say you're getting paid as the subcontractor at $50 an hour to coach this person. The person who brought the client in is probably making at least $100 an hour off that person. And so they're making basically the same amount of money you are, and they're not doing any work other than they found the person.
Yeah.
And so you could spend your entire time finding people and then giving them to your subcontracted people, which is a great business model in the world of coaching. But you can't start that way because you don't have a program for people to learn to be able to coach. You've got to be able to at least cut your teeth first. So starting out as a subcontractor to somebody else is very wise, but you do eventually want to move away from that and either do your own clients or bring your clients in who you subcontract to somebody else. That's very important.
I think it's also important. I think it's also important to realize that even if you're a coach in the coaching business, coaching is not really the only thing that you do to generate revenue. You have to sit down and say, okay, what else is it that I could do as part of my coaching business that's also monetizable, and maybe even monetizable at a much higher rate? For example, I might do one-on-one with coaching with an individual, but I also have companies that I do consulting with, and those people pay me lots more money because it's much more valuable to them. So my coaching, and I'm using coaching as almost a generic term. So I might be coaching a one-on-one, which I do a little bit of, but then I might have a company like an insurance company that pays me for a consulting to help them strategize their business and deal with employees or other public relations, whatever it is, and they pay lots more money, and they might be on a contract as paying me with a retainer. So they might be paying me a yearly fee, and we're more loose about the time that we spend together. And I do this also where I have clients who run, like I have a functional diagnostic nutrition, a good friend of mine, Reed Davis, who I do his marketing, his strategic planning for his company, and it's a very successful company. They're known all over the world. So in that case, the best financial arrangement I was able to make with him, which worked out good for him, is we have a minimal fee that I require that he pays me all year long if we don't even meet. And then if we do planning, strategic planning for things that are revenue generators for him, he pays me a percentage of the money that he makes, so that if he doesn't make any money, it doesn't cost him anything. If he does do something, we do something together that's successful, then he pays me my percentage based on the total revenue. So that model is hugely more vast than someone paying me hourly. So if you're contemplating being a coach as a way to earn a living, I suggest you sit down, write down where your areas of expertise are, and see how you could take even one of two ways. You could either work on, like I say, working for a company, and then from that you get individuals to coach, or start working with individuals and then plug into their connections, their companies, their businesses, the people they know, that you could step that up and now coach to a bigger group or a company or a corporation or a business, because they might have allotted $50,000 for coaching for the year, where they may not nearly take up as much time, but the sessions are much more valuable to them, because instead of one person getting your knowledge and trying to your value is dependent on how you can help that person generate their value. So if you're coaching an individual and you're helping them with a business, and their business is a very small business, well, their ability to pay you is based on the size of their business and what they generate. Most likely in a corporate setting, then where a company's generating $20, $30 million or $10 million, well, they have a bigger budget to spend with someone to do their coaching. So don't think coaching is always one-on-one. As Sean said, that's not the only thing I do. It's a very small part of what I do. Think of what you could use your talents to turn that into a whole lot more than just one-on-one coaching.
Yeah, and so, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just going to say it's interesting you should say that, Dr. Allen, because once again I've just sat down and looked at my economic viable business model, and I have brought organisational consulting back into the mix because it's not viable just to work one-on-one or even with small groups. So now I'm back. So that's why Emerging Leaders is now small to medium organisations that want to grow, because I want to get back into getting that $5,000 a day for talent management consulting and strategic planning, because that's viable. I've realised now 12 months down the track that just doing the one-on-one coaching or even group coaching is not viable. And so you're absolutely right. You've also got to be, it's that 80-20 stuff too. You know, where should I be spending 20% of my time to get 80% of my revenue? And it's back in organisations because they'll pay. And it's that that numbers thing as well. I can have a better impact. I've decided not to go back into large organisations, even though they pay extremely well, because they're immovable beasts. They take too long to move with stuff, you know. So anyway, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. It's very timely that you've just said that, because I've just literally finished doing that last week, looking at all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is a dynamic of it. I'm glad you also said small groups, because that's kind of a next step. When you're just coaching for your own individuals, the next way to bring in a little bit more money is group coaching, where you may charge a little bit less, but you've got more people in the room, so you're actually making more per session. So that's a step two. But then doing that large group session, and I'm just going to give an example of how something kind of is flowing together. I started out with coaching. I was coaching this person who happens to have some connections in the world of real estate. They understood. They thought I had some good knowledge in an area. So they talked about it. And so now I'm giving a presentation in front of an entire group, a regional group of real estate folks. So I'm going to be giving a presentation in front of that group of real estate folks. And I'm giving that for free. I'm not actually necessarily making money on it. I'm just doing it to help train them. But what that opens up is all of these people, if they want more training, are going to get offered one of three options. One, coaching with me one-on-one. Two, I come in and coach their office, which is a much higher rate than me coaching just that individual person. But I'll come in for, you know, a day and do, like, basically these are all individual representatives from one large real estate office. So I have the ability to then maybe go into that large real estate office and do the same presentation to all of them at a small fee. And then the other side of it is, if you really want what I'm telling you to do, I'll come in, I'll work with one person for 3 days, get everything set up, in place, and functioning. And that's where that small business consulting comes in, because then that office has everything they need. It's already built, it's done, it's set up, it's running. And that one appointment can be the equivalent of everything I need to bring in for 1 month. So if I got 2 of those a month, I'm actually, you know, great on top of anything else I'm doing. And so if you can go after those larger ticket items to the groups that fulfill what they need, and is it going to be a little bit more work to fulfill at that cost, like that higher cost rate? Probably. But I'd rather give 3 days of coaching to that one place and make everything I need in a month than do a bunch of small individual coaching here and there and hopefully make it through the month. So that idea of going to a business and working with them individually for their business does really help, either as the business as a whole, or just who's in charge of what it is that I'm offering. Like, if you know human resources stuff, you don't need to go talk to the person in charge of supplies. Who cares? You need to go talk to the person in charge of human resources and tell them this is how you can do your human resources better. But if you happen to be a money management expert about how to find money that's being thrown away, you're going to go talk to that supplies person, because are they buying stuff they need? Are they buying it timely? Are they buying ink just when they need it? Or are they know that do they have 1,700 different printers in their office? Does every person in their office of 30 people each have a different printer? That's a waste. You would be better off buying everybody the exact same printer and buying that ink in significant bulk for that one printer type, and that's going to save you the cost of having bought those printers anyway over time, probably quickly over time. Those kind of ideas, if that's your area of expertise, great. Then you're going to talk to the supply people so that they can say, you know what, this is what we need to do. Those concepts of knowing who you are, what it is that you bring, and knowing who the right people to talk to are. I'm talking to social media with these real estate people, and to be honest, the listing agents are not the people I actually want. They're the ones that are going to be in the room for the initial presentation. I want the front of the house secretary who has to put the postings online. The listing agent goes and finds a listing, and then they hand it off to the person whose job is to post it on Trulia and Zillow and Craigslist and everywhere else. That's the person I want to talk to, not the guy who got the listing. I want to talk to the person who's responsible for posting the listing up, because if they're going to post that listing, now you're sharing that on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all these other things, using the pictures that are on the posting, and now you've got this huge way of one listing getting out to lots of people that they don't know about. And the listing agent going to do it. They're just going to go find another listing place. But when you do it this way, they're going to go through their listings quicker. They're going to bring more people in. The listing agent's going to be thrilled. The person at the front of the house is going to get thrilled because more money's coming in across the board, et cetera, et cetera. That's who I want to talk to. I don't really care about the listing agent. But in order to be able to even start that conversation, the listing agents need to understand why their office isn't running efficiently. That's the concept that I want people to get. I know what I do, I know I need to talk to, but if I call up a real estate office and say, can I talk to the person who posts these online, I'm going to get the intern or a secretary, and that person doesn't have the power to say, I'm going to pay you, $5,000 to come in and take care of our office for us. The listing agent does, but I got to sell them on why they need what I have, and then tell them, by the way, it's not going to take any of your time. That makes it doubly beneficial. That's the concept people need to get. Other thoughts from you guys?
Well, I think I want to shift it away from financial for a moment or two, at least get this in because of the word health. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, and I'll put a investment wrapper on it because we've been talking so much about finances. This is something that I always sit down with people when we talk about things like health, and I've worked with thousands of patients over the years. So that is, most people always think about their finances. In other words, I want to invest so that one day I can retire when I'm 60 or 65 or 70 or whatever people do in these day and age about retirement. And they're so happy to spend all their time and energy to get a 10% return on their money so that hopefully when they're 65 or 70 they could retire. But what they don't realize is that very few people actually invest in their health. They don't, so that the chances of you living and being healthy at 65 or 70 is very, very poor. Most people are not healthy when they're in their 70s. Most people are taking a lot of medications. Their body is not in physically good shape because of all the time and energy they spend working and doing the wrong things while they were working, that now that money, whatever they accumulated, even if they have a lot of it, there's no dividend to it because they're not going to be able to enjoy it. So I always say that one of the most important things you need to do, whatever you decide that you do, is to figure out how am I investing in my health now to be able to reap the rewards if I am financially successful. What's the point of being financially successful if you're laid up in bed? So one of the things that's important now to think about is this, and the reason I'm bringing it up because we're talking about coaching, is that now the research really shows that sitting is the new smoking. That means for people that sit in a desk chair in front of a computer hour on hour on hour on hour, those people become some of the most unhealthy people around. And the reason for that is, without getting too technical, is this. There is a woman who wrote a book recently, which I can't remember the name of, maybe you know Sean or maybe you know Wendy, who worked for the NASA space program. And one of the challenges of being an astronaut is when astronauts come back from outer space, they have tremendous bone density loss. They have extremely high blood pressure. They have extremely high heart rate. They have problems with dizziness, muscle atrophy, blood sugar problems, weight gain, almost any health thing that you could think of, astronauts suffer from. And the reason is that the way your body's designed is being in gravity forces the joints of your body to stimulate your brain, and when nothing's stimulating your brain from the movement and joints in your body, your brain no longer works the way it's supposed to, and as a consequence it can't manage all the jobs. What people don't realize is that the job of the brain, of course, is to literally inhibit the things that are going on physically in your body. That's why babies, they have very high heart rates, because their brain's not suppressing it, because their brain isn't developed yet. So that's why babies' pupils are wide open, because the brain isn't able to constrict the pupils. That's why blood pressure, heart rate, respiration rate are crazy for young children, babies, because they have a brain. In our case, as we lose brain, well, blood pressure goes up, blood sugar problems. Anyway, so the point is that this person that was originally in the NASA Foundation found out that when your spine is in a position of sitting, it decreases the gravity load on your body and you get less firing of those joints and muscles, so your brain works less effectively, which is why it's said now that the most important thing that you could do every day, and you see this, is every hour take a minute or two break, stand up, do some exercises. You see now desks that are elevated so that you could stand and work. You see treadmills with desks attached to them so you could have movement while you're doing the work. Now, I helped my wife put together a course for teachers for certification on how to get students out of their chair. The concept of Johnny, or Johnny or Jane, sit in your chair for 6 hours and don't move, don't talk, don't chew gum, don't do any of those things, is shutting down the brains of children from learning. So all these things that are going on. So the first thing I say is, there's the book. I knew Sean would find that book. Amazing. Totally amazing. And the book was called what, Sean? Let's go there really quick.
Sitting Kills Moving Heels by Joe Vernokas.
Beautiful. That's absolutely perfect. I knew you'd figure that out. Anyway, so with that said, I recommend that if you're a coach, you're in front of a computer, get out of your chair every hour and start moving around. Interestingly enough, a little shameless self-promotion, just for a moment, is that one of the apps that I've developed pops up on your computer or your iPhone or your iPad every hour, and inside there's a video of exercise of someone standing up from their desk and demonstrating an exercise that you do along with that person. At the end of a minute, it says, well, time to go back to work, and then you shut it down, and then you go back to work. An hour later, it pops up, and there's that person saying, okay, now we're going to do shoulder stretches, neck stretches, march in play, so it's an alarm clock with exercises built into it. Just an interesting, shameless self-promotion.
Well, no, and I think you're spot on. Like, that's the thing. Like, we have a society where there are a lot of roles where you just sit. You just sit in front of a computer all day long. And I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of what you're talking about, Dr. Allen. Every time I finish a meeting, I go and I'll take a quick walk outside. Even if it's, 30 steps, who cares? I move, I get up, I move my body around, then I can come back and sit down for another hour-long call or whatever I have to do. But you're right, to sit and sit and sit for 8 hours straight without any movement of doing anything is just not going to benefit you. The more you can move, the better. The more active you are, the better. But any movement at all, broken up to break up long periods of sitting, does matter. That's part of that health. It's also good for your brain. It's good for your eyes. Your eye fatigue is extremely common in people who are coaches, especially if they're people who coach online, because sitting in front of a screen and looking at a screen the whole time is actually not good for your eyes. You want to be able to look up and look at something that's at a faraway distance on a regular basis instead of just looking at a close screen. It's bad for your eyes. All of those things go into that health aspect of being physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically. All those things all are about that health side. So we did talk about finance because I think that's the thing that prevents people from doing the rest of these things. I would love to go for a 30-minute walk, but I can't. I have to take this coaching call right now because I got to make that extra money. Well, you know what? You got to figure out a different way to be healthy, and you got to figure out a way to make it so you can find that 30 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. And you're right. It doesn't matter how much money you've saved over time. If you're not healthy by the time you get around to using it, who cares? I'd much rather go on a vacation to, Alaska every year, or I'd much rather go on a month-long vacation every year than have, 3 times the money saved because when I'm old and all I did was work for 40 years. That just doesn't pay off. So you've got to find that time to be balanced. You've got to make it intentional. You've got to be responsible. And a lot of it is that it's fine. This is the big thing. This is why I give the students that calendar of midnight to midnight, or like 1 a.m. to midnight, of where are your times, and then I'll have them break down into, I'll take a 6-hour chunk of that day and I'll break it up into 15-minute chunks and ask them to look at it from that, because you'd be amazed how many little 15-minute, 10-minute windows you have throughout the day. Like, I have 11:30 to 1 blocked off for this hangout, and 11:30 to 12 is to make sure the hangout's all set. 98% of the time, getting the Hangout ready takes 5 minutes. I open it up, everything's working, I change the things on the pages, I send the invites out, I'm done, I don't have to do anything. But a lot of times I'll just sit here and do nothing for the other 20 minutes I have left after getting the Hangout. Instead, today I had a bunch of people I needed to add into my phone. I was able to add all but 2 of them into my phone while I was waiting for the Hangout to begin. I intentionally and strategically used 20 minutes effectively. So instead of having to find 20 minutes later to do this, it was time that was blocked off, it became free, I used it intelligently, quickly, and effectively instead of letting it waste. One of the things I did recently, and this has been, I can't tell you how painfully, how beneficial it's been and how painful of an awareness it's been, is I took every phone game off my phone. There's nothing on my phone I can play. There's no Candy Crush, there's no Ninja Fruit, there's no nothing. Because what I found myself doing was, if I'm on a call and I'm bored, I would mindlessly go play games on my phone. But I'm not present. I'm not aware of what's going on. Even I wouldn't do that during like a coaching call. But if I was on like a group call where I was listening to something else, and it was amazing to me how not present I was becoming because I had an easy distraction. That's another aspect of health. If you're really fully present, you're going to be able to perform better. And instead of, I would have played games during that 20 minutes instead of adding all the names into my phone. So games, yeah, whatever, they're nice, they're fun, but they don't move me forward. Adding, 20 names into my phone, that's productive. That's great, and that was a good use of that 20 minutes. So it's finding the time, those little chunks of time, and using them to improve your health. Go for a 15-minute walk. If you've got a 20-minute window, go walk for 15 minutes. It's great. And 15 minutes, you can do about a mile in 15 minutes if you walk at a decent pace. Make sure you're consistently drinking lots of water. All of those things. Every time you have a break, go fill up your water glass and drink it. And if you're done at the end of a call and your water glass isn't empty, you're not drinking enough water. All of those things go into this concept of being healthy. We're coming up to the end of the hour, so I'm going to just give you each kind of a chance to just share a last concept. Then I have to get out of here because I need to go in 5 because I need to get to an acupuncture appointment for my own well-being. So there we go.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. It's all great. Totally concur with the whole lot. I will just add one thing. My biggest challenge around health for me as a coach at the moment is not absorbing other people's energy. I am a bit of a container, and I do absorb energy, which is one of the reasons why I moved out of organizational consulting, because I would absorb the energy of the organization, which was usually toxic because I was normally working in toxic organizations. I had a recent example, and I'm still not quite sure how to deal with this, but we haven't got time to talk about it, but maybe another time. I was with a coaching client. She described her very painful fall, which resulted in a wrist fracture and all sorts of other yucky things. And interestingly enough, half an hour after her call, I went for my daily run. We talked about exercise, and I fell over badly, exactly the same way that she fell, and sustained the same injuries, not to the extent that she did. So I didn't fracture anything and end up in hospital, thank God. But I just thought that was amazing. I've never fallen over in the whole time I've been running all of my life. I just thought that was amazing and a beautiful example of how I absolutely absorbed her stuff, taken it, and then, replicated it. So that was a real warning sign for me. I'm still not quite sure what the answer is, how I protect my field of energy, or, what that is. I just know I need to do some work in that area.
And that's its own hangout, and we can definitely make that one of the topics for the new ones as I roll it out. It is its own thing, and there are lots of techniques, and we can talk about them. But I hear what you're saying, and that is a challenge that coaches hit. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll look at it because it's true for businesses as well as everybody else that they take on the energy of their clients, those kind of things. So it's all of that is important. Dr. Allen, any last thoughts, comments you want to make?
I only let clients share personal things to me because of what Wendy's saying. If they have multiple orgasms, I figured if some of that comes my way, I'm good to go. No, I'm teasing. Anyway, so with that said, well, first I want to say that I want to thank Sean for these Wednesday calls that have been a really important part of my life for the last year or so. I hope wherever it goes, I'm on board. So that's really good, and I know that it's taken a lot of time, energy. Sometimes the work is more than there were. Sometimes the energy you put more in than you get out of it. I got to meet Wendy, who I love when I get to see her. You know, I would have never met Wendy and a number of the other people on there. So I just want to at least say that and recognize Sean for, you know, putting this group together, because it has been important in my life over the weeks. As far as health goes, I think we've really said everything that we need to say, and ultimately I think we gave some really good points, both on a financial aspect as well as on your health aspect. And I think if people would just, you know, when it comes down to it, I wrote a book a long time ago, and the book was basically a compilation of things I've asked physicians that I said, if you had only 10 things that you could share with every patient, that you would go ahead and give them as advice to lead a long and healthy life. The interesting thing about that is that there weren't even 10 things. When it comes down to, you know, de-stress, eat right properly, exercise, drink plenty of fluids. I mean, no matter how you say it, there's not that many basic things about leading a healthy lifestyle. We all know what they are. The difference is to be able to do them. It's like having a glass of water on your desk. If it doesn't go down, you could pretty much bet your life. It's getting out of your chair. It's knowing, you know, the basic things about your finances so that you could do those without being stressed out. What we've covered are the basics, and that's all you really need, but the key ingredient is to incorporate them into your life, and I think that's the most important part of the, you know, of this particular session.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to build off that. Simply put, make yourself and your well-being a priority. And until you do that, none of this is going to work. Once you do that, you're going to see a drastic change, or dramatic change, or dramatic if you want to combine them two, and you will see something positive happening for you. So that's my final words. I will be in touch with everybody with whatever this new rendition looks like, tentatively Tuesdays, 2 p.m., and I will let everybody know a little bit more as I get it figured out. So thank you, guys. I've appreciated you always being on here. I am off to go take care of myself now.
Thank you,
See you
Sean.
guys. Great seeing you. We'll talk next week. See you, Wendy. Bye-bye.